So our topic today is AI for churches. We're going to unpack this topic. It's fairly new right now, but we want to help you gain a broad understanding of what is available to you as a church, as you are thinking about ministry and how to do ministry, and how you can utilize some of the tools that are available right now in the AI space. Dennis is our guest, or not, I'm sorry. Dennis is not our guest. He is actually part of the team here. He's our co-host and expert in all things AI. So Dennis, why don't you set up the topic for today?
Awesome. And Michael, if you can go ahead and just give me a screen sharing permissions, that way we'll be able to get rolling here. Let's see. So
Okay.
yeah, okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to start off and I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Let's see. So real quick, so this presentation that I'm going to be going through, this whole slide deck, okay, was created with AI. Now, I did input the content myself, right? But this slide deck, the photos that you're going to see, everything within this slide deck is AI. And it generated it pretty quickly. So for this, just to already throw in a freebie there, I'm using a software called tome.app, right? So at the start of this thing, you can already see the power of AI, right? Now we can use AI for things like video, text, images, newsletters, presentations. So for this, I'm using tome.app. So now, so you understand, this is a quick guide to AI for churches, right? Everything that Michael and I, everything that we do, we want to make these tools not only accessible, but understandable for your weekly context, right? So when we talk about AI, let's first set the stage. The first thing is, why should we care, right? Like, why should we care about AI? But let's invite some more people coming in here. Yeah, so that's really the first thing. And can everybody see my screen okay? Okay, thumbs up. Perfect. All right, let me just move some things around here so I can see everything that I need to. Okay, so why should we care about AI? So if you don't understand now, AI is one of the biggest technological advancements in modern history, right? So again, right now we're just seeing the chat interfaces, we're seeing the image generation, but what we have to understand is that AI is the biggest technological advancement in history. Recently, I read something that AI has already been proposing cures to cancer in just under something like 3 months. And the findings is incredible. So AI is the biggest technological advancement. And for us as ministries, we have to understand the technology so then we can then leverage the technology to do ministry.
So
right?
Dennis, just real quick, I remember back in the early 90s when the internet, there's like this buzz about the internet and what it is and getting online and learning about www and URLs and those type of things. And I think a lot of times we're, in church world, we're kind of afraid to kind of jump into it. But I remember when that came around, we realized that, hey, this is going to be here to stay. And little by little, we started to utilize it within the church world to then actually do ministry, to the point where today, we have church online and a bunch of different platforms that are out there to do ministry with. I remember MP3s when they first came out, like back in, again, this was probably early 2000s, and there was MP3 players and people had to get up to speed. What is an MP3? And all of a sudden now everybody, we use them all the time. So I think it's one of those things where it's this big shift that's happening, and we just need to understand it as church leaders so that we can learn how to use it well for our church.
Exactly. And that's it. So AI is the biggest technological advancement that we've seen thus far. And it's only going to get crazier. Right now, their big concern is a concern of something called super intelligence, right? So for us as ministries, we just need to get an understanding of this so then we can leverage these tools to do good, right? It's almost like a tool like money, right? Money is not evil. What we know is it's the love of money, right? It's how we use money that can become evil. In the same framework, AI is not evil, but what you'll see is there will be a lot of evil people that will use these tools to do harm. But us as ministries, we need to leverage these tools to share the message of Jesus. So what is AI? You probably know this already, but AI just simply stands for artificial intelligence. And what we know is that AI is transforming everything, from self-driving cars to virtual assistants. And AI is changing every single industry. In the business sector, companies are spending billions and millions of dollars on AI. Some of the biggest global corporations that you can think of are all hiring developers just so they can get out AI. Some of the biggest competitors within the AI space is Microsoft, Google, Apple is coming out with AI, Meta, which we know is Facebook, and a lot of the major softwares that we know, such as Grammarly, such as HubSpot, they're all coming out with their own AI tools. So AI is the biggest technological advancement, but what does that necessarily mean for the church? And how can we use AI to enhance the work that we're doing and better serve people? Right? So these are some of the topics that we're going to be covering. So what is artificial intelligence? What is specifically generative AI? How can you use AI in your church administration, in the future of AI for churches? Okay, so what is artificial intelligence, right? So artificial intelligence refers to the ability of machines to be able to do human-like functions, right? So think of anything such as problem solving, decision making. And the way that AI works is it uses algorithms and models to create these outputs. So real quick, I'm going to go through these very fast, and we can provide this presentation later on for you as well. So with AI, there are these things called AI models, and some of the different systems that are used are, I'll give you a few examples. There are role-based systems, there's machine learning, and then there's deep learning, right? And I know you might be thinking right now, like, hey, why should I care about this? I'm going to point back to why you should care as it relates to some of the questions that come up with AI and if churches should use it. So there's rule-based systems that pretty much just use like a if-then statement. There's machine learning that allows machines to learn from data without being specifically programmed. And then there's deep learning. Deep learning uses neural networks. So if you don't know, that's how our brains are wired. So it allows machines to process large amounts of complex data. Now, real quick, here's why you should care. For example, with deep learning, one of the things I say about AI, and a lot of people don't like when I make this statement, but AI has read the Bible more than you. It has read the Bible in more languages than you. It has read more scholarly papers than you, right? And it has been trained on hundreds and thousands of pieces of text, right? So are we understanding why this is a big deal so far, right? Now, here's one of the things that I will always say, that artificial intelligence can never and should never replace the supernatural intelligence of the Holy Spirit. That can't change. But again, as ministers, what we have to do is we have to leverage these tools to do good. So does everybody have a good basic understanding of what artificial intelligence is? Just give me a quick thumbs up before we move along.
Now, I think we actually do use AI in smaller situations and have been used to using AI in smaller, situations like Siri on your phone or Alexa, or they've got a small level of AI, but now we're talking about they're going to ramp this stuff up even more. And that's what we're trying to get across here, is like it's getting next, or it is next level, and it's coming to the church right now. Like it's here.
That's right. That's right. So we talked about artificial intelligence. Now we're moving on to this specific type of AI called generative AI. And I'll just read this off to you. Generative AI is a powerful tool that can be used to perform creative tasks such as generating artwork, composing music, and even writing code. So for example, this image that you see on the right here, I put a monkey in space holding a Bible. And in one try, in one attempt, really, this is the image that I got when I put a monkey in space holding a Bible. And it generated this image in less than 25 seconds, right? So we're seeing how revolutionary these tools really are, right? So the way that generative AI works, it uses complex algorithms to really analyze patterns, and it generates new content based on those patterns. So one of the questions people usually ask is, can we trust AI as it relates to interpreting Bible text? Where is it getting its information from, right? And I go back to this idea that AI has been trained on a lot of theological papers. It's been trained on the Bible in several different languages. It's been trained on several different inputs. So when I go back to AI should never replace the supernatural intelligence of the Holy Spirit, it's saying that we can use these tools mainly as a research tool or an idea generator, not the end all be all. So generative AI is empowering creativity. So here's what you need to know.
Real quick, Dennis, I was just curious, what tool are you using to create these graphics?
So right now, the one tool that I'm using for this presentation is called Tome, Tome.app. And this tool, I believe it's using different models to generate these images. So some of the most popular image softwares are Midjourney. I would say Midjourney is probably one of the best ones on the market right now. And then there is a model called Stable Diffusion. One of the models that I like to use, which we'll go over in a little bit, it's called Leonardo. .ai. We'll touch on some of that at the end of this call. But yeah, the way that it generates images, and now they're moving from not just generating images, they're actually moving into generating video. So I was messing with one software where I basically put in Moses crossing the Red Sea, and it gave me a video. It wasn't great, but of Moses crossing the Red Sea. So what we have to understand is that AI is already a part of our life, kind of like what Michael stated earlier. We've already been seeing AI through things like Alexa, Siri, Google Voice, Apple, Spotify. When you're shopping online and you get recommendations, all of these tools are all AI. There's AI in them. But now, why is it different today? The only difference today is that AI is now in our hands. For us regular common folk, we can now have access to the same AI tools that these larger corporations have. So what is ChatGPT? Now, I understand the bulk of today's lessons, we're going to be focusing on ChatGPT, but there are a lot of awesome models that you can use. There's Claude. There's a bunch of different ones, but for this video particularly, we're just focusing on ChatGPT to get everybody up to speed. 2 weeks from now, I believe we're going to be doing another training on AI, another free training on AI, where we're going to be going deeper into how to use AI on a weekly basis, and how do you use AI really on the road to Sunday, right? So what is ChatGPT? Real quick, just a quick survey. Give me a quick thumbs up if you are currently actively using ChatGPT. Okay, I see one hand. Bill, okay, let's see. Anybody else? Okay, Ty.
Yeah, just as you guys are doing your thumbs up, I've started using ChatGPT earlier this year to I do a lot of graphic design stuff. So maybe I have a mailer and I need maybe some text on the back that describes the event. Like maybe it's a men's event coming up. I found that I can jump into ChatGPT and say, hey, write a paragraph about this men's event. I put in a few details and then it generates, something that's pretty close. So I get to work a little bit faster, and it's not 100%, but a few tweaks gets me there, and it really saves me a lot of time.
So as it relates to ChatGPT, the reason why ChatGPT got its popularity is because of the simplicity of use. With ChatGPT, you can communicate with AI through a chat interface, as most of you already know. Now, communicating with that chat interface, that's actually what the C in that's the chat part in ChatGPT, right? Is that you can communicate with it. The G actually stands for generative, right? Meaning that as you're communicating with it, it's giving you real and new output versus AI models in the past, where they were just given a bunch of data and they would spit back out that same data to you, right? So ChatGPT, the evolution of it, bringing it to market, is now what really what revolutionized it for everybody, because now it's in our hands. So now the question really is, how can churches use ChatGPT? And a lot of you know this already, but just to make sure we all have a good foundation, you can use it for researching topics for sermons, Bible studies. You can actually use it to generate sermon notes, again, through the filter of using it as an idea generator, and not as a end tool that you're going to preach on a Sunday morning. You can use it to construct Bible studies. Now, the question always comes up: can we trust this? Remember that these AI models have been trained on thousands and thousands and thousands of texts. It's read the Bible more than you. It's read the Bible in more languages than you. It can tell you any word that you can in any translation in the Greek and the Hebrew. Now, so this is like searching Google, but times 35, right? And again, everything that we do, we want to go through and we want to fact check it. And then some of the other things that you can use with you can do with AI is you can actually produce elements for worship services. So right now, one of the things that I've been testing is using a website called 11 Labs. And 11 Labs, what it does is it produces real sounding audio, right? Like it sounds like a human is speaking, and you can get it to pretty much say anything you want to. Now, here's why that's important, because now you can take your Sunday sermon by going to 11 Labs. You can take your Sunday sermon and you can translate that Sunday sermon to any language that you can think of. Well, not that any language, I think it's over something like 60 something languages, but all of the common languages, you can translate your sermon into that language, and it's going to have real text that does not sound like a robot.
Wow, so I could enhance my voice and make it sound really booming, and that's that's pretty cool.
You can even copy your own voice, right? Here's where it gets really crazy. You can upload your voice into 11 Labs. You can copy your own voice, and then you can translate that voice to another language. Like now are we starting to see how powerful and the real opportunity behind these AI tools, if used for good. On the other side, on the not so positive side, one of the biggest fears, and families are starting to create safe words, because what scammers can do now is they can actually steal your voice, and then they can call your family saying, I'm being held hostage, send me money, right? So again, I go back to, these tools can be used to do some really good things, but they can also be used to do some really awful things. So I highly recommend checking out 11 Labs. In fact, you can go on their landing page right now, and you can start using the voice feature and start testing it out. In fact, just yesterday, Mike and I were working on a video, and it was on, I believe, the book of Jonah.
Jonah, yeah.
And we used 11 Labs to generate a real sounding voiceover, right?
So that's where that came from. I didn't know that until just now. So wow, okay. So typically you have to go find some talent, like you use a service to go find talent, like somebody with a British accent that's a male and is 40, 50 years old or something like that. And then you hope the talent can hit the script. But wow, that's cool that you could just go to this AI generator and get the right voice.
Right. So again, revolutionary, right?
So just Real quick, just to add to your so I'm in communications. I don't necessarily preach. So some of the ways I used like ChatGPT specifically, I'll sometimes have people or ChatGPT write posts like email headlines for me, like write a great headline for this email, and it'll generate that. And I can say, hey, give me 10 options for this headline. Or same thing with social media posts, like write a post about this topic and give me 5 options, or give me as many options as you can. And it's been super helpful to see the AI being able to generate the options, and then I choose the right one that I feel is right for me, make a couple tweaks, and I'm good to go. I can even have it like I do email marketing. A lot of churches do email marketing where you're sending out emails to your database. Again, the ChatGPT is great for generating a lot of that text. So any text-based work that you're doing, ChatGPT does a great job at generating that.
That's right. That's right. And so for me, so just so you understand my background, before I got into the church communication world, I actually started a nonprofit that's called We Dine Together, that scaled to about 1,000 clubs across the U.S., really around the world. And since I started that, I was doing keynotes. I was preaching at churches, but I was doing keynotes for corporations, for major organizations, anything from the student council to PTA to Campus Crusade, just about all of the big organizations you can think of, 4-H, Rotary. I was doing their national keynotes, and there's a talk that I would always give and I probably given this talk like probably over 50 times. And I put my talk into AI and I told AI to give me some feedback. And before I was doing another keynote the next day for, I think it was maybe the national PTA or something. And AI took the talk and the story that I always told, or the illustration that I always used, AI was able to give me another version of that same story, but applied it to my audience better than I could even think of, right? And I've given this talk over 50 something times, right? So that's just the power that AI holds to enhance what we're doing. Again, it's not supposed to replace what you're doing. It's supposed to enhance it and make you a better communicator. And when we communicate better, the people that are under our care, they get better in the process, right? So the whole reason why we're talking about AI specifically for churches, it's because of this number one thing that none of us can get back. It's time, right? AI, ultimately, the best thing about AI is it saves us time. So now you don't need to sit down thinking of a sermon title for 3 hours of your life. You can do that instead in 30 minutes, right? And I don't believe personally that's replacing the power of the Holy Spirit in the process, but it's just enhancing your ability in that process. So now, here's some key ideas for using ChatGPT, but really for using any AI model. So these same concepts work for ChatGPT. It works for Midjourney if you're trying to create images. It works for Claude. It works for any AI model, right? So some of the key ideas, the first key idea is, one, be specific, right? AI, although it's great, it cannot read your mind. And you can tell it to be as specific as possible, so you can get what you want out of it. The second thing that the second key idea is, remember, use ChatGPT or use AI, again, as a tool, not as a replacement, right? The third thing is experiment with it and have fun. I think we're in an amazing era right now where you're going to see all of these AI tools pop up left and right. Like I told you myself, I'm working on a tool right now called Church AI, churchai.com. And that has been such a fun process because I'm just creating tools that I know churches and ministries are going to need, right? But the idea for these tools just came from me experimenting with other tools. So the key ideas that I want you to hold for this is, one, be specific. Again, use it as a tool, not as a replacement, and experiment with it and have fun. Now, here's a key idea when doing anything with AI. It's this idea that the power is in the prompt. The better the prompt, the better output that you get. So maybe you try to use AI and you're like, oh, I don't really like that, the output that it gave you. So if you don't like the output, the first thing that you should do is check the input, right? So now we're going to talk through the difference between a good prompt and a bad prompt. Now, does everybody have a basic understanding of what a prompt is? So the prompt is essentially the set of instructions. Let's see. The prompt is essentially the set of instructions that you give to the AI model or to the AI bot to give you the output that you want. So here's an example. Here's the making of a good prompt. The first thing a good prompt is specific, right? So it should be as specific as possible, providing the AI with as much information as needed to generate relevant responses. The second thing it needs to be clear. The prompt should be clear and easy to understand, avoiding jargon or technical terms that AI may not be familiar with. Now, the thing about the jargon and the technical terms, it still does a really good job of understanding jargon. And then the third one is complete. The prompt should be complete, including all of the information that the AI needs to generate a response. So, and then let's jump into a bad prompt, and then I'll give you a few examples of prompts that you can use. So a bad prompt is general, right? So it doesn't provide a lot of information. It's not specific. And again, you can really get good outcomes or outputs with bad prompts. You can, because the AI models are that good, but you get even better outputs when you focus on crafting a great prompt. The second thing about a bad prompt is it's unclear. It doesn't really tell it what to do. And when you're unclear, it leaves AI room to come up with what it wants to, or the prompt is incomplete. Lastly, it's either missing some key information that the AI needs to generate a response. So then what will happen is you will write a bad prompt and you won't like the output. So you'll keep messaging AI and say, no, I don't like that. And next thing you know, you're arguing with AI for 3 minutes of your life, right? So what we really want to do is we want to get the prompt right. So let's go back to the idea of a good prompt. So a bad prompt would be like, give me a sermon idea on the book of Genesis, right? A great prompt can be, give me a list of 10 sermon topics on the book of Genesis and focus on the role of creation and seeing Jesus in the book of Genesis. So you see, like, the prompt needs to be specific and clear enough where you can tell it what you want it to do, and you can also tell it the format that you want it in. And that's something that a lot of people don't know. Michael, do you have any thoughts so far before I keep going?
Just quickly, I've also used the prompts to write in a certain style. Like you can tell it to write more friendly. You can tell it to write in a certain like in the business world, there's like a sales letter format. Like when you're trying to sell an idea, you can say, hey, use the sales letter format. There's a great book called Building a Story Brand. Donald Miller wrote it, and he has a framework where he kind of walks you through like how to create a sales pitch. And so you can actually say, hey, use Donald Miller's framework to write a sales pitch for this youth event that's coming up next Wednesday. So even announcements, like one of my roles at the church was to do like announcements on Sunday. So I can put prompts in there, write an announcement using the framework, Donald Miller framework, the Story Brand framework for a youth event that's coming up next month. And then it gives me the prompt, kind of the script that I can then go through, and then I can adjust it, of course, but it does it in the right order so that I have the right words. It provides the right words for me. And again, I use that maybe for live announcements, but I can also do that when communicating on a post I build a lot of websites, so I can, again, generate a lot of text of like, hey, for the about page, maybe we want to say this is a place where you can find community or you can find friends. Again, I can prompt the AI to say, write a paragraph about how a church is really good at helping you find friends. And then it'll generate something that I can then use. It's not 100%, but again, it's really good. Gets you in the right ballpark.
That's good. That's really good. Now, the next thing I want to move into, it's ethics and boundaries. Now, I would say that this is a area within the AI space that I'm not too familiar on, but I don't think anyone really is, right? Because it's so new that we're kind of all just making up the rules as we go, to be completely honest, to be completely clear. Right now, there's Hollywood actors that are trying to sue AI companies because now what they're trying to leverage AI to do is they're trying to leverage AI to create movies and shows that don't require any actors. So now in hearing of this, a lot of actors are beginning to go on strike, right? So now as it relates to AI, ethics and boundaries, I would really say that's something that your ministry has to talk through to know what are the boundaries of how your church should be using AI. Now, some of the personal ethics and boundaries that I think you should put in place is one, to fact check the outputs from AI, right? One of the tools that I'm working on, it can give you a illustration, and some of the illustrations that it gives you for, let's say, a sermon, it can be a historical illustration. So it's talking about dates and times, right? So one of the things that I'll do is I will go back and I will just fact check those just through a Google search to make sure it's accurate. And more often than not, it's very, very, very accurate, right? So that's the key thing I would say as it relates to ethics and boundaries. It's one, fact checking the outputs, and also making sure that if there are people within your church that are using AI, or people within your church team that they're using AI, they're not putting anything out there that hasn't first been approved, because you can run into some trouble. And then again, when you're using anything with AI, just check different sources. It kind of goes back in the same lane of the ethics and boundaries. And if you're a pastor and you're using AI as part of your sermon preparation process, one of the questions last time I did a talk on this, I got the question of should we tell people that we're using AI, or how can we cite any content that's AI provided, right? And my simple answer to that is you don't necessarily cite everything when you do a Google search, right? And again, we're using these tools not as an end product, but we're using these tools as a starting point to get it to do what we need it to do, right? Michael, do you have any thoughts as it relates to ethics and boundaries as it relates to AI?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you have a team around you, you just have to kind of collaborate on what you need to do. Like if we feel like, hey, we should cite AI for whatever, then okay, that's fine. I do know, I think actually Candy was mentioning here that ChatGPT itself creates its own citations. So, well, that's kind of one of the things that people are talking about. So I think your point of like, hey, verifying, the content, we just can't be lazy. But again, it's one of those things where you just have to figure out whatever our rules for using this tool that work for us, where we're comfortable with it as a church, as an organization. I think Candy was also mentioning earlier about training ChatGPT to use your voice, which is cool. Like it can write in your voice. I guess are you familiar with that, Dennis? Or
Yeah. So one of the ideas of super prompts, and one of the ideas of super prompts is you can actually give ChatGPT a prompt that says, and again, the reason why we're going to do another training on this in 2 weeks is because there's so much content to cover as it relates to AI that we could not fill it within this 1 hour block. Right. I wanted to do this as kind of the foundational, so we're all on the same page. 2 weeks from now, we're going to do another training where we're going to focus more on the specific type of prompt. So one of the things that you can do with ChatGPT or any AI bot is you talk to it like a human, and you can tell it that you're about to feed it a bunch of information. Right. And from the point that you feed it that information, then you can tell it to do a specific task. So you can tell ChatGPT, hey, I'm going to provide you with a series of texts, analyze that text, and then provide me with a 250-word article with that same tone and that same style. And it's going to do that. And then one of the things that you can do with the chatbot, you can say, do you understand? Right, to verify that they understood exactly what you told it to do. One of the things that that businesses are using it for, let's just say, for example, you can tell AI, you can give AI a prompt that says, I need you to write a blog for my article. I need you to write a blog for my website. Ask me 20 questions about my church to get everything you need to write that article. And then it's going to ask you 20 questions, and you answer those questions. And then it's going to have, again, deeper context to what and how to write for you. Right. So the best way to view AI is to almost view it sort of like a companion or an assistant. One of the best things that you can do with AI, and we're going to go ahead and dive deeper into ChatGPT here. Can everybody see my screen?
We're good.
The ChatGPT screen.
Yep.
So one of the best things that you can do with ChatGPT, and if you're not familiar with how to go get on ChatGPT, it is free. You can go to chat.openai.com and you can make a free account and get signed on instantly. So one of the things that you can do within the prompts for ChatGPT is you can say something like, you are let's do something fun, like a sermon assistant. Your job is to provide me with sermon titles based on the key words I provide. So basic prompt. And then the response of ChatGPT, of course, I'd be glad to help you come up with sermon titles based on the keywords you provide. Please share the keywords or themes you want to include in the sermon titles, and I'll create sermon titles for you, right? So this is just one example of how you can begin to train this specific ChatGPT workspace to do what you need it to do. So then let's just say something.
Dennis, I was just curious. So once you train it, is it trained like forever since it's like your account, or do you have to come back in and retrain it next time?
Everything that's within this chat. So the way it works is every time you create a chat, that chat gets stored and it gets saved. And then now you can begin communicating with the chat, and it's going to remember everything that you said previously. So let's say we had a 25-minute long conversation with ChatGPT, and now it's your best friend. You can tell it to do something, and it's still going to remember that previous context, right? So it's almost like you're talking to a human that's your assistant. So in this case, I'm just going to put the word in faith. And this, again, is an example of a bad prompt, right? Because we weren't very clear, and we just gave it one simple keyword. So we put the word faith, and it gives us these outputs: the power of faith, moving mountains, and those. Okay, now you can say, rewrite these titles and include a description for each title. Now, this is another example of a bad prompt, right? So again, I just told it to do something basic. Now, while these outputs can seem pretty decent, one of the things that I could have done with my prompt is I could have said something along the lines of include a 6-word description for each sermon title. Now, why would I do that? So we also do some graphic design, and we find the sermons that are the most compelling are the ones that have a sermon title and a clear hook, right? For example, the one that we were just doing designs for about Jonah, I think the sermon title was The Book of Jonah, a fishy tale about a faithful God, right? So you can use ChatGPT to create these outputs, or you can give it previous input and you can say something along the lines of, give me sermon titles along this style, right? Now, the best thing about ChatGPT is, for example, let's say we like number 7, choosing faith over fear. Let's try telling ChatGPT, give me a detailed sermon outline for number 7. And again, so I just said number 7, and you're going to see that it remembered what number 7 was, and then it started creating the outline.
So we can
Now,
use this from a marketing perspective too. Like we can write blogs with this. So one of the great tools that we have is our website, and then if the website has new content on it on a regular basis, Google really likes that to get you found. So you can do the same thing where you're writing articles and you're able to generate content for your website or for social media or for so you can use kind of the same process to generate marketing materials.
Right. So you can see with from this outline, it did a pretty good job generally, right? And again, use this as an idea generator, use it as a research tool. As a communicator myself, I try to reduce the time of my ideation. So like, let's say if I'm doing a sermon, I'm going to spend a lot of time in my prep, so studying, getting it in me, right? But I don't want to be spending another 40, or however many hours on trying to craft a great outline, right? So we can see that it gave us a pretty good outline, the biblical call to faith, explore key verses, examine the lives of biblical figures who faced fear but found strength in their faith, David, Joshua, Daniel, Esther. So we see this right now. Where you can take this a next step is you can say something like, now turn this into a study for 21 days of prayer and fasting, and provide an accurate Bible verse for each day. So now you see with a couple of seconds here, it's starting to generate. It's starting to generate a different study for each day, right? And again, I'm just trying to show you how you can take these things and you can build off of them. Okay, so it gave us 21 days. Now I can say, from a communication standpoint, because I believe a lot of the people here are communications people. Now, from a communication standpoint, you can say, give me a compelling newsletter to send out each day. The newsletter should be short and concise. I spelled concise wrong. I'm not from this country. Should be short and concise and open up with an introduction statement. And then what we'll see is for each day, it will start to generate a newsletter. Now, because this is a longer form of text, it only did it up to day 5. So then you can say something like continue, right? And then it's going to continue doing the rest of the days, right? So I hope you guys found this helpful. Again, the goal of today was to give everybody a good foundational understanding and maybe give you some new ideas of how your ministry can be leveraging AI in a way that you probably haven't thought about. So in this video, we covered what artificial intelligence is. We talked about a few tools like ChatGPT, Tome AI for presentations. We talked about tools like Midjourney for creating videos. We talked about 11 labs for generating audio that sounds human-like. For images, there's tools like Leonardo, and even softwares that you probably use like Canva have AI tools already in it. So I know that our time, we're almost at the stopping point here, but we will remain on the line for a few minutes to take some questions.
I put a link to the different items that Dennis has mentioned, all the software. So you can check out the chat to get those links. So Dennis, it sounds like text generation is a big feature. Image generation, you said video and voice. Is that right? Are those kind of the 4 major areas?
Yes.
Yeah, if anybody else has any other things that they've used AI for, go ahead and drop that in there. We'd love to see any other, or if you have any questions that we have not answered. I believe as Dennis has gone along, we've kind of answered questions along the way. Somebody was asking about different types of AI tools beyond ChatGPT, and we kind of mentioned several through that. But if there's anything specifically that you still need an answer on, drop that in that chat.
That's good. Does anybody else? Yeah. Does anybody have any more questions before we close? That's oh yeah. That's true. Check out Product Hunt for new AI tools coming out daily. That's right.
Yeah, I've noticed that every company, like if every major software that is out there is implementing some sort of AI into it, and they're releasing alerts or updates, just letting you know, hey, we're going to start using AI. Chatbots are a big one too. You can add a chatbot to your website, and the chatbot can answer questions for people as they come to your website. And if it doesn't have an answer, it can point them to like a email or it can send a message, to you or something along those lines. So that's another way I've seen AI used. So a couple weeks from now, we're going to go deeper into AI. We'll send out an email blast with a link if you want to jump on there. That's going to be on August the 16th, Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Dennis is going to go a little bit deeper in some of the AI tools. And if you have any questions between now and then, feel free to email us. You should be getting those emails from us. So just reply to that. Send us some of your questions that you might have. If you're part of Comm Academy, we're going to come back next week and have a live training for you guys that are part of that. If you haven't checked that out, check out mycommacademy.com. We'd love to have you be a part of that community. I think that's it for everybody. Thank you for jumping on with us today. Dennis, thanks for sharing. Thanks for preparing everything. A lot of work went into that. Really appreciate it. And we will see you guys on the next call. Thank you.